you want us both to say this is our video out?
Yeah, try it. I think that's cute.
Yeah, okay. My name is Mark.
My name is Jean-Claude, and this
This
is
is
our
our
video
video
out.
I love that. I think it's so cute. Yeah, great. Okay. Are you both from El Paso?
No.
We live here now. We've lived here for 8 years. We moved here in 2010.
Well, I'm from France originally, but before we moved here, we lived in North Carolina. I lived there for 36 years, yes, before we moved to Texas. Before then, a few years in Florida. So.
I'm from a small rural town in Kentucky, Somerset, Kentucky. And I traveled to South Dakota, South Carolina, and then North Carolina for my work, and now we're in El Paso. We moved to El Paso. He was able to retire, and he's been retired ever since we've lived here. I had an opportunity to become an assistant director of the library system, public library system here. We've loved living here. It's a great city. We're thinking about retiring here.
Oh, great. Lucky El Paso, right?
I had an artist friend from Kentucky, a woman who I talked to twice over the years, and both times she says, you should try the Unitarian Church. And so part of the move from South Dakota to Columbia, South Carolina, was a decision that I was just going to go in and speak to the minister of the Unitarian Church. And I did that when I got to Columbia for my job there. And she handed me a brochure at the end of our talk, and it was a gay men's retreat that the Unitarians were sponsoring in North Carolina at their retreat center in Highlands, North Carolina. And she told me, you should go to that. And I was still very afraid because I hadn't had any real association with other gay men. But I went, and I remember walking into the kitchen of the lodge where this event was taking place, and the person standing opposite me was Jean-Claude. And there's a lot of stories between that moment and today, but I'll just say that for me it was love at first sight. I have never felt otherwise. You know, I knew what I wanted at that point. I don't understand how you can feel that way about someone you don't really know personally or haven't really connected with yet, but I did. He made the mistake at the retreat of saying, well, if you're in Asheville, come and see me. And of course, that's just something you say. But I decided I was driving home from Thanksgiving at my home in Kentucky, back to North Carolina. So I stopped at a rest area and I called him and I said, do you remember me from the retreat? He didn't remember me. But I reminded him of his offer, and he said, oh yeah, come on over. So that's how we first got together. After about a month, he was still feeling very skittish because he had been hurt badly by his last relationship, and he pretty much ended it. He said, this isn't going to work. I was crestfallen. I remember driving down, he was living on a mountainside, and driving down the mountain just screaming at the top of my lungs because I was so hurt by the fact that he was rejecting me. And then he kept calling me saying, pretty much, I'd like to be your friend. I felt insulted by that because that's not what I wanted from him. That went on for about a year. He finally gave up and just stopped communicating with me. But then another year passed, in a weak moment, decided I was going to write to him and just pour out my feelings to him. And the thing that happened was that we had letters that crossed in the mail. And we really did think that was a sign that it was right. It was something that could now happen, that couldn't have happened 2 years before. So we started dating long distance between Columbia, South Carolina, and Asheville, North Carolina. We've been together for 28 years now. We had a service of union at the church, Unitarian Church in Asheville in 1992. But then a few years ago here in El Paso, when the Supreme Court had the ruling, just a few days later we went to the courthouse and made it official. So we've been married since 2015 and have been very happy about that decision.
I was married for 10 years and I have a daughter and I have 2 grandchildren. So they still live in North Carolina. So I go over there twice a year and stay with them for a little while to be able to visit. More, of course, occasionally, not as much because his work doesn't allow it, but so that's the way it worked out. I never had a close relationship with his family. They never really accepted me, so we just went there for very brief visits, you know, no holidays with them, that was never allowed, but so we kind of adjusted to that and made our own circles and made our own stuff like that, you know. So my family was different. Because my mother was still living at the time when we first started being together in France, and we go to France every year together, you know. So there was never any problems with that. Now my older sister in Florida did. She didn't talk to me for 15 years when I finally came out, but then she had a total turnaround, and now everything is just great. So it took a long time. We had no more communication or anything, and then how we met again is because my ex-wife's nephew got married. And the reason I went there is because my older sister is married to my ex-wife's older brother. So we're brother, sister, mother, brother. So we're still family, even though we're no longer married. So we went to the wedding, and that's how my sister was there too. So we connected again, and that's how we all started again after 15 years. So, you know.
I have some follow-up questions I want to ask,
Okay.
but I need to swap out the camera, if that's okay, real quick.
Before 1991, I was a good son, and then suddenly it was just after I spoke to my mother about the fact that I was gay, everything changed, and it was like suddenly I was a rebel. And she began to set up all kinds of conditions. I couldn't see her in the hospital if I had my ring on. We had to stay in a motel when we came to visit. I could come to holiday events, but if Jean-Claude came, some of the family had told my mother that they wouldn't be there. She even wrote me out of her will at one point. My brothers, who basically their attitude has always been, Mark can do whatever he wants as long as he doesn't hurt our mother. They actually came to my defense on that, and so she reconsidered and dropped the idea of disinheriting me. I've been grateful to my brothers for actually standing up for me at that point. She learned to accept Jean-Claude over the years, I believe, more than the rest of my family. The last visit, she had been in the kitchen criticizing me about the same things, you know, not going to church, living a lifestyle that God would not approve of. And Jean-Claude overheard her. He went into the kitchen after I left, and I've never heard him speak like that. He got really firm, and he said, "You cannot treat him that way." And the interesting thing about that is that later when we got ready to leave, she said her goodbyes to me, and then she looked up and she said, "Where's Jean-Claude?" And for the first time, she reached up and she kissed him. And soon after that, she died. After we moved to El Paso, we made it known to a few people in the city government that we were a couple. Coming to El Paso was the very first time where we had an opportunity to be ourselves and be open. I was always open because there weren't those consequences for me. I was in a public setting and it was easier. But when we got here, people knew about our relationship, and we had a very courageous mayor and city council at that time who had passed an ordinance making to create a register for domestic partnerships, and basically it meant that my insurance, health insurance, would cover my partner, even though we weren't married. For us, it meant that we were in a position to make a difference locally, because there was a local minister who gathered a lot of people around him to try to defeat or reverse this ordinance. And we'd gotten our names on the list just before it closed on the domestic partner list. And when all of this, there were lawsuits, the mayor spent a lot of his own money defending the domestic partner list. And we got a call from the city manager, and she said, "We need someone who is fairly high profile in the city government to become plaintiffs. And we'd like to know if you and your partner would be plaintiffs in the lawsuit that's been brought against the city." We were on the opposite side of the city, but it was our own city manager who was asking us to take that stand. So we did, and we had to go to court, and our names are in the outcome of that suit. So we came to El Paso, and that happened pretty soon after we got here. We felt like we just got in with both feet right off from the time we became open about our relationship.
It went on for almost 2 years before they finally had resolved it. And of course, then now it's all a new situation, because after the ruling of the Supreme Court, there's nothing that you could do about it. But at that time, it was really it was a newspaper was about every week about this constant going on, and we were the plaintiffs too, so so it was kind of interesting.
Wow.
I'm so proud of you guys.
Yeah, right? That's awesome.
But Texas is not one of the most liberal states, as you probably know. El Paso is really different than the rest of the state.
There's a conservative faction in town, but there's far more liberals here. People are not that different, no matter what their backgrounds or their beliefs.
I've been able to be freer here than I was in North Carolina, because I have been in trouble. Like, I was the president of the El Paso Cactus and Rock Club and things like that, and I didn't make it an issue. Everybody knew that I was gay, everybody knew that I was with Mark, so I would have never been able to do that in North Carolina. So that's been liberating, so. And I think that's probably true in a lot of larger cities. Unfortunately, it has to be larger place that you have to move to in order to be that way. But El Paso has been, for me, a freeing experience, yes. Mm-hmm. Well, I think I'm very concerned, like a lot of people, about the government we have today, this atmosphere of whatever you would call it up there in Washington, I don't know where it's going to go. I hope it's going to go, hopefully soon, for the better, But it concerns me a lot what they're doing up there, and I think they would, if they can, they will try to curtail rights that we have gained up to now, you know, so that concerns me, yes.
I guess for me, I feel that if one of us is not free, none of us are, and I worry about the countries where there's still a lot of oppression and people getting killed because they're gay, and I just want to see a day when the entire world is accepting and welcoming of gay people. What I think about is the fact that the nature of our relationship has changed, because as you physically decline, other things become more important, and the quality of our relationship is the best it's ever been. You know, we struggled in the early years. It wasn't all rosy all the time, but the longer we're together, and we've been together 28 years now, the better it gets in terms of the love that I feel for him and that I believe he feels for me.
It's true. And like you know, we are getting older. We have health issues. You know, we got to take care of each other now. Like, you know, Mark, sometimes I have to help him put on his socks and things like that. You know, give him a shot every week. That's things that you do when you're in a relationship. I mean, it's not all romance, you know.
Yeah.
Romance is great, but you have to have the other stuff that's solid, you know. So, and when you get older, as you said, you have issues.
Financial security is another matter, and we are secure financially, fortunately. But I think there may be so many gay couples out there that before marriage was legalized may not have had as much to look forward to in retirement because of the fact that they didn't have the same rights and benefits as married couples. So I think that's made a tremendous difference in the level of security we feel about retirement, and I'm sure many others feel that way as well. No, I think that's pretty good. There's so many stories, but we don't have time.
Yeah, of course.
I'm a writer. I'm writing all these stories.
Oh, good.
He writes every Saturday. He goes to a writing workshop and he writes.
Yeah.
And I say, how come you come up with all these things, you know? Because it's all in there. It's all in there.
Yeah, right. You got to get it out.
That's right.
Yeah.